Hello and welcome. Before we jump into this unconventional brief tutorial, let me set the stage. The Southern Pacific number 9, like her sister number 18, is a Baldwin 10-wheeler 460, but built in 1909. Number 9 lives at the Laws Railroad Museum in Bishop, California, where she arrived in 1960 as non-operational and was put on static display. Since 2023, efforts are underway to arrest the decay caused by 63 years of sitting outside under lawn sprinkler attack. Back to the tutorial. After Randy and Scotty completed the inspection, they offered the Laws volunteers a quick run-through. This is captured here. Randy and Scotty are both engineers at the Durango and Silverton Railroad in Colorado. So without further ado, here are Randy and Scotty.
So first off, this slide valve locomotive versus a piston valve. So these are balanced slide valves. If these are the same as like the 18, there's a ring in here. It's a sprung ring that's holding it up. This is something you guys still should probably take apart, and I'll explain that in the report. But so it's not a piston valve type whatsoever. They're 16 by 20 cylinders. These have been overbored to 16 and a half, which is fine. This is known as a layered crosshead style. So crosshead layered style is because it's like this. There's also like an alligator style. There's a I got another name off the top of my head. But a few different styles of that. Stephenson valve motion, you guys know that. So you have your tumbling shaft, be this piece. You've got your links and link blocks are down there, your eccentric arms, and then to eccentric straps and to your eccentric cams on the main axle, which in this case is number 2. They're set 90 degrees off of each other. 2 are forward motion, 3 or 2 are rear, like reverse motion on the eccentrics. And it's probably, depending on the admission type, my guess is it's outside. Yeah, exactly. So a couple things like that. These were grease sellers. We talked about that yesterday, except the pony truck, which was oil sellers. Something else we can talk about how you do it and work those out. What else on the running gear side of things? These are split brasses. So these have a break in them. This is an adjusting wedge, so that's how much adjustment you have left on it. That's a little bit of an older style. So if you were to take these off at some point, it's really important you know a center to center distance before taking all this apart. And otherwise, I mean, you'd have to find strike points and all that, which is not too bad to do, which is actually what like these little V's are that they have notched in. That's where their strike points are. So that's kind of a quickie once over on running gear, I guess. Scotty, you want to give a little boiler love?
Yeah, sure. This is a Keyhole firebox, and it's just called that because of the shape. It looks like a keyhole. There's a lot of different styles of firebox, but usually an engine without a trailing truck and an outside frame has the firebox going in between the drive wheels, so that's why it's shaped like that, just to fit it in there. Later on, bigger engines like ours in Durango and bigger SP engines, they had trailing trucks and big fireboxes for more boiler horsepower. But this is the Mudring down here. It's the bottom, it's where the boiler ends, back here at the firebox. So it's just a solid piece of steel, riveted all the way around. And that's the only part on a boiler that has a square corners. Is where it ends down here. So you can see it's 90 degrees in there from the Mudring to the wrapper sheet and the side sheet and the firebox. So the this area has pressure in it, and there's water all around the firebox to cover the crown sheet and all the sheets in there for the heat to get in there and boil the water. These are rivets. Anything that looks like this is a rivet. So that's holding the courses together, the wrapper sheet together. These are Staybolts. So the only reason these are here and not here is because there's a firebox here, and these bolts are supporting the inner sheet of the firebox. Bigger engines and more modern engines have a combustion chamber, and you'll see a bunch of bolts going all the way around like the first course. This is old enough it doesn't have that. So these bolts are usually between 15/16 and 1.1 in diameter, and these are all threaded. So if you feel in here, you can feel that they're completely threaded all the way through. So those support that, and these occasionally will break, and you're allowed a certain amount that can be broken that have to be fixed every so often that the engine's running. But these are considered a kind of a consumable item with the boiler, because as the firebox heats and cools down, all this stuff is moving around a little bit. So that's what those are. This is a blowdown valve here. This one still works, still moves. So that's how you would drain or fill the boiler. It's from there. You can blow that, open that when it's under pressure and blow all the scale out of the engine.
Wow.
Boiler plug right there. That one's still in.
Yeah, that's
There's another plug. Goes here at the front corner. And these are not pipe thread. These are 12 threads per inch, whereas pipe thread is 11.5 threads per inch. So it's important to know that and not.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so you don't put pipe in it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
so you
So don't ever put a store-bought
Any
pipe fitting in
boiler
there.
stuff is 12 thread going
Okay.
into the boiler. You can't
Okay.
put.
You can't go to the hardware store and get a
You
replacement.
can't. And even all pressure piping is always going to be Schedule 80. Don't go to the hardware store and start buying plumbing. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's one of those things that makes projects start to get really expensive.
Yep. So but it's so close that it is possible to thread pipe into stuff like this, but you don't ever want to do that because
Right.
it could damage that and be unsafe.
So
Alright.
would you buy bulk pipe and have a threader that's the right pitch with the right?
Okay. Well, I mean,
I mean-
to some degree, but you're going to need nipples and elbows, and then
Yeah.
you get into I mean, most of that stuff you have to all just order always.
But this plumbing out here isn't boiler plumbing.
Yeah.
It's like it's just a heavier grade, a heavier schedule. So this would all be 11.5 thread per inch. But anything that goes into the vessel,
Gotcha.
like this fitting here, that's a custom fitting. So that would have boiler thread, and then it's probably adapted to pipe thread, where this is all pipe, like standard hardware store style fittings.
Once you get out of
So this is this is boiler thread on that end and pipe thread on that end. So
So all the plugs, all
Yep.
the pipe, everything going in.
yep,
is-
studs.
And all like washout plugs, they're going to all be custom to each hole. Like you can't just put them in a bucket and change them.
yeah,
And that's why
it's
we
unlikely they'll fit.
That does not work.
Okay.
So
There's these are studs that are actually threaded into the boiler, into the wrapper sheet. So they're boiler stud that goes into the sheet, and then it's just regular bolt thread that sticks out. So that's another double. It's different on each end.
Custom.
So this nut would be like a standard size, like 7/8 or 1 inch. But what goes into the barrel is not like a normal tap.
Right.
So it's 3/4 inch taper per foot tap that you would use for that at 12 threads per inch. So that's the kind of the boiler appliance deal. The steam dome's up there. That collects all the dry steam. The throttle valve is in there, and the very, very top of the throttle valve is the inlet, and that's to prevent any water from getting into the dry pipe. You always want the driest steam, and that travels down to the front, that dry pipe, and it goes through the distribution header and down these branch pipes. So throttle steam from the cab, when you open the valve, steam is traveling down here and into the saddle, and the steam,
branch pipes.
yeah, those are branch pipes. And then that steam goes on top of the valves, like Randy was talking about, then into the cylinders. And after it's been used, it goes through the center piece, which is called the blast nozzle, and exhausts out the stack. So every chug, chug, chug you hear is steam that has been exhausted from each stroke. And there's 4 strokes per revolution, because there's going to be 2 strokes per side, and each side is 90 degrees apart. Each crank pin is 90 degrees apart, left to right. So that's where the steam goes.
and you're creating a vacuum in the smoke box
Yep.
as part of how it fires.
This valve is a slide valve.
Oh,
So this is just the piston.
okay.
But there are styles where this valve looks like this, just smaller, where it's like a caged valve, like a D valve. But this is an outside admission slide valve. Like very, very archaic way to do it. They made kits where you could convert this to a piston valve because it's more efficient, uses less steam, it doesn't wear out as much. But this is standard for any steam locomotive, is the main piston. So this is the main, like main rod connects to the main piston,
and that-
valve and valve stem, valve rod. That's pretty universal for every locomotive. That's just a different style. And it's harder to lap in and harder to seal and harder to maintain.
Okay.
If you ever wanted to pop these out, this is a wedge, which comes this way to come out and this way to go in. So you could hit this to get it in. That's tapered and matches a taper in this crosshead guide, or in the crosshead itself, and then there's a taper in the actual piston rod. Then this is also tapered into here. So you can see this where they've bashed this to get this apart to get the piston out. So those are the two things.
Custom puller
Yeah.
on the 18 that we had to build, you know, to get all that stuff apart. Any bolt on the frame, any valve motion stuff, like these pins here, any of this like frame type stuff, these are always going to be tapered fitted bolts. They will not just, you don't just put oil on them and soak them. Like they
have to be
typically
driven out.
require being driven out.
It's like a Morris taper. It's like that sort of fit.
Exactly.
And that's to prevent all this stuff from working as the engine's moving, because it's under extreme forces.
And you can't just and then conversely, you can't just replace that stuff with normal bolts if you have to cut it out. They're all custom. You have to have the taps and the reamers to fit them.
The boiler is pretty simple. There's not much to it. This is not a superheated engine. It's a saturated engine or a soaker. So once you open the throttle, it just goes straight into the valves and the cylinders. It doesn't go anywhere else. The acorn looking caps above that open hole, that's a flexible Staybolt versus this is a rigid. So this is just threaded on each sheet, and that's that. The acorn style up there can move around in that sleeve that it sits inside of, but it's always rigid on the firebox side, so it allows it to move a little bit more. And they probably added those like aftermarket from Baldwin because they were probably breaking a lot of Staybolts up in that area, so they made them flexible. So there's 21 of those up here that would have to be replaced because those are rotten just from the insulation. But again, that's a kind of a consumable item. This is the independent brake, the cylinder for the engine brakes.
There's one on each side.
Yeah, so that air goes in here when you set the brakes, pushes that piston out, moves that lever, and there's linkage that goes to each brake shoe, brake rod, brake beam. So that's all stuff that moves and wears out. Brake shoes can be replaced. These can come out. Some of them those are probably cast iron, but it just depends if they come in from the top or the bottom. This is how you adjust the brakes. These two screws right here, you can adjust the travel of the independent brake for the locomotive with these guys.
Oh wow.
So there's one per side because there's two.
Yeah.
So if you put air to that, it'll work. You only need about 45 pounds of air and it'll set the brakes. So if you guys want to mess with that, you can. This is the delivery line for the injector. So tender water comes through here. That's probably a screen or a thing out. The injectors, do you guys have those?
Yeah.
Anywhere?
They're
Okay.
open in the box.
So they're probably like Nathan.
They're monitors.
Monitors?
Yeah,
Right.
same as the 18.
Right. So that's a lifting injector. Basically just creates a venturi in there and sucks water from the tender and goes down a pipe here and goes into that check valve, this red valve here. The only purpose of this is to prevent boiler pressure from exiting the boiler, but it allows injector pressure water to come in. So there's a little brass disc in there that moves up and down. And you can shut that off. So you just turn it all the way to the right and it'll close that. So if that check were to ever fail, you could close it and work on it, and it would prevent boiler pressure from coming out. But usually you run with those wide open because you need them open to put water in the boiler. So there's two injectors, one on each side. Some engines had water pumps and axle pumps. This one probably just has two injectors though. Air pump probably went over here somewhere. Probably went right here.
Other side. Oh no, you're right. That is this side. I'm sorry.
Probably studs for that. So That has just regular steam coming out of the fountain valve in the cab, the big manifold up there with all the valves. So that's just boiler pressure steam to the air compressor, and it exhausts through here. So that goes into the saddle and then out of the blast nozzle in the front. So yeah, exhaust there. And then there's main reservoirs that go here. There's probably one for the other side too. And that air goes into those tanks.
Right.
Charges to 130 pounds. And that's for air brakes, sanders. There's stuff in the cab, but there's not really anything there to point at, so. There's different fasteners that get like a slotted nut like this or a castle nut. And there's other things that get two nuts and a cotter key, so just kind of whatever they were able to fit in there. See, these nuts are double nutted and cotter keyed, so they really didn't want those to come off. And these are probably tapered too.
Yeah, those are.
They must have had issues with these things coming loose.
So the boiler is only attached on the front. This just hooks it on both sides. So if you popped these off, the back of the boiler isn't attached anywhere. And that's so it can expand and contract when it heats up. So that all has to be like loosened and, you know, made free. Otherwise you can ultimately do damage.
The axles are keyed on the wheel centers. You can see the key there. They press the axle on and key it, make sure it doesn't slip. The tires are separate from the wheel centers.
Yep.
So these are another consumable item that you heat the tire to get off. But it's roughly, what is it, like 20 thousandths oversized?
It's like a 1/1000 per inch diameter. So these are 42-ish right now. So it's probably a 38 inch or so wheel diameter. So yeah, you'd have like 35, 38
So this is the inside diameter of this tire is 30 thousandths smaller than the overall size of this. When it heats up, that's how much strength force is holding that tire on there. So that these can get turned, or if they're too thin, they're totally replaced. The counterweights are filled with lead. They did all sorts of things. You can see that this had a banded hub at some point, so they probably changed the weight of this. They cut it and welded that.
These are frame binders here. So when you want to remove the drivers, you pull those out, and that allows the wheels to come down in the boxes.
This whole frame is suspended off of these springs, so they're not sitting directly on the axles or the boxes. So each driver is interlaced together. The lead truck is on its own, and then the spring rigging begins here, the dead hanger. So it's sprung through that on top of this box, equalizer, then this one, and then there's an E-clip back here that
There's an
dead
inverted
ends.
spring with a
coil spring there that it dead ends on. So that's all equalized together, but it all moves like in tandem.
yeah. And you can tell it's frozen because nothing is moved on this
Yeah.
in moving it in and out. So it's all it's probably could be that pin there or there's something frozen in it.
That's a knuckle pin. That just allows the frame or the rods to be able to move like over track. Because if this was rigid with this, it would break it.
Yeah.
If you're going up over a switch or something, it just allows it to move just like a knuckle does. So that's that part moves, but not as much as like the big end of the main rod.
Yeah.
This is called the main driving axle because the thrust is going into it from the main rod, and if it's a Stephenson valve gear engine like this or any kind of valve gear, all of the eccentrics and the linkage are attached to this so that any of the force won't be delayed or anything. So that's why the eccentrics go to this axle, but then it all goes up to that valve sim up there instead of putting the eccentrics on the front one or the back one. So this is the main driver, and that usually has the most counterweight. You can see how bigger that counterweight is than the rest.
What do you think? Want to put in love, labor, and hard-earned cash? As of winter 2025, the law's board opts for arresting the decay and keeping number 9 a static display without sprinkler attacks. My philosophy is, The only constant in life is change. So who knows what will happen in the future? Stay tuned. If you like what we, the Carson, Colorado Railway and the Lost Railroad Museum are doing, please share this video. Please like, please leave us a comment, and consider donating. The websites are listed in the description. Thank you for watching.